All right, everyone. Thank you for staying with us through day 3 of the Smart Protein Summit. Incredibly exciting and jam-packed once again. And I'm very excited about this upcoming session as well, this panel. The reason being that we've talked about this a lot over the last couple of days. And if you've interacted with GFI and with me over the last couple of years, you know that I've said that catalytic capital and handholding and all of these things is a huge piece of the need to build this ecosystem. And we have with us two panelists here today who are going to talk a little bit about the work that they're doing and make a very special announcement about how they're going to stimulate the ecosystem in the country. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce them. Um, Chirag Jain, excuse me one sec. Chirag Jain is an entrepreneur and CEO of Ashika Capital Limited, which is part of the larger Ashika Group, 26-year-old financial services firm based in Mumbai. ACL is a future-focused investment bank working to help companies raise money through debt or equity. And the broader Ashika Group has a number of other diversified financial services businesses as well. Chirag is very passionate about the startup ecosystem in India. He has invested in, mentored, advised a number of businesses, particularly in the food and beverage industry, which is very exciting and relevant here. You may have all seen, for example, that Ashika Group helped Swedish House Mafia, the cookie company, raise a large round of funding recently, among many other such companies. Chirag, welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Smart Protein Summit.
Thank you so much, Varun. It is a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and I should also say Ashika Group was a partner of ours at the Future of Protein Summit last year as well, where they co-hosted a food service panel. Secondly, I'd like to introduce Andrew Ive. Andrew is the founder of Big Idea Ventures and its managing partner. Big Idea Ventures, or BIV, invests in and builds companies in the alternative protein sectors globally. As part of their first fund, the New Protein Fund, they operate two accelerators, one in New York and one in Singapore, and have already invested in over 20 companies in the space, including Mumbai-based plant-based egg company, Evo Foods. Big Idea Ventures is focused on climate change, animal welfare, and sustainability. Andrew himself has been focused on innovation and developing high growth businesses throughout his career. He serves on the Tufts Nutrition Council Advisory Board, is a Friedman School entrepreneurship advisor, Harvard Business School graduate, and is trained at Procter & Gamble in their brand management program. He currently has a best-selling book, Choose Your Startup, Funding Your Company. And his first product, the XIT Ladder, is in the permanent collection of the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, which I didn't know, Andrew, until a couple of weeks ago. Welcome, Andrew, to the Smart Protein Summit.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you, GFI. Really glad to be here, and an amazing event you guys have put on. Thanks for everything you guys do.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to start with Chirag, and again, dive into what you both do, right? Chirag, Ashika Group is a leading financial services advisory firm, as I just mentioned. You've also just, over the last few years, had a special focus on innovation and especially technology and food and beverage. Could you tell us in a couple of minutes about the history of the firm and particularly your recent work, which I think is really exciting?
Sure. So I think, Varun, again, to add to what Andrew said, and to add to what you've said, it's interesting to be here virtually, even though we could not be there in person in Delhi or another city if you'd chosen to do an event there. But obviously excited to be partnering with you, and to give you a quick background about us as a financial services business. We're a 26-year-old financial services business in multiple services. So we are in brokerage, we're in lending, we're in investment banking, we're in wealth management, and in asset management. We have about 300 people in the company that are working actively, and we've got offices across India, including headquartered in Calcutta, and I'm based out of our Bombay office. So over the last couple of years, we've all seen how technology is playing a lot of important aspect or role in our day-to-day lives today. For example, Zoom itself is now a term that all of us are using. Everybody knows. My dadi now knows about Zoom as well, right? So the entire twist of us, in the F&B space specifically, I won't say technologies per se, happened coincidentally when a very interesting brewing company, a craft brewing company in Bombay that you must be familiar with, Gateway, probably the first brewing company in Bombay, opened its office right across our office in Nariman Point. And we got to know them, the founders became friends, and we started working with them. And that was when the entire F&B journey within the group started. And And after that, we've been working very actively with multiple companies in the F&B space, be it in brewery, be it in restaurant chains, packaged foods, that we've been helping either maybe in terms of fundraising, through debt, through equity, or through other forms of advisory. And we've built a repository around that entire ecosystem. So that's been our journey, and we've done a lot of work. And you mentioned about our Surisha's Mafia transaction. We are in the pipeline of doing some really large transactions, again, helping companies raise capital, especially the ones who've been hit hard by the COVID pandemic. So we're doing some really interesting work, which you'll hear more about. So yeah, that's a bit about us.
And it's great work because especially in the F&B space, food service, it's been really heavily hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's really, really important work. Andrew, I want to hear more about the BIV story, and our audience does as well. You've already run 2 cohorts of your Accelerator programs across continents. You've been an integral piece of the alt protein investment landscape. How did all of this come to be? Would you tell the audience about the hybrid model that you run? And would you like to also take this opportunity to make an announcement about what we're doing in India?
Okay, there's lots of parts to that. So just to kind of give a bit of context, rather than just going through a resume, I wake up in the morning and I kind of have this feeling that the clock is ticking, that we actually need to be making significant changes to how we live, so that we can continue to live in the way that we do around the world. And that clock is always kind of ticking in the back of my mind. And that's not to say I'm pessimistic about the future. I'm actually incredibly optimistic. And the reason I'm optimistic is that there are organizations like GFI, like Ashika, and others. There are entrepreneurs out there who are tackling these problems through, every time they come up with a better way of delivering meat, animal protein alternatives and other ways of giving people great tasting foods, but in a way that's far more sustainable to the world. I know that those entrepreneurs are making a significant difference and giving us more time. So, I'm really optimistic and passionate about working with entrepreneurs globally, and in particular India, because it's one of the kind of most important growth areas in the world, both in terms of the economy, but also population. So anything we can do to bring great products to market that allow us to provide great tasting food to people and replace animal protein is making that clock, putting more time on the clock. So I'm really excited and optimistic about the future. In terms of big idea ventures, our goal is to solve the world's biggest challenges by backing the world's best entrepreneurs. So we believe that entrepreneurs, and within that category, entrepreneurs, scientists, engineers, those are the folks who are doing the real work to solving these problems. It's not politicians. It's certainly not politicians, given what's going on at the moment, but it's not politicians. It's not necessarily academics in ivory towers, unless they can figure out how to commercialize their IP. It's not policymakers. Ultimately, it's engineers, scientists, entrepreneurs, business people who are making the difference. So we want to help facilitate the best of those folks around the world, and in particular India, by giving them money, resources, access to expertise across the food industry, and so on. Why food? There are 2 key industries impacting negatively climate change. One is transportation, and the other is food. Now, that Musk fellow, that Elon, I forget his name, Elon Musk, I think, I don't know, that he's kind of tackling the whole transportation piece with electric vehicles and long-lasting batteries and so on. So the transportation piece, it has its entrepreneurial rock star working on the problem. On the food side, we've got our entrepreneurial rock stars working on the problem also, and rock stars to come. And so we want to help those kind of folks solving the challenges around animal factory farming, because that's the second largest behind transportation. and we want to facilitate those people. So that's big ideas. That's why we're doing it. That's why we're optimistic about the future. And that's how we're going to make the change we need to make, by supporting great entrepreneurs to bring great alternatives to animal protein to market in the meat, seafood, and dairy space. In terms of the announcement, I almost want Chirag to kind of do that piece, because he's been so central to kind of making it happen. So Chirag, why don't you tell people what we're kind of doing today, you know, what we're announcing today, and then I can maybe build on that.
Varun, is that something that you want to?
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
So you know, to everybody listening in, I think Big Idea Ventures with Andrew. Andrew, we've been talking about doing something in India, and we've been in touch for the last 1 year. In fact, we were supposed to meet last year at the GFI event, and that didn't come through. Then we hosted Andrew. We pushed Andrew to, in fact, come and visit us in India, and he did make that trip in early this year, right before the pandemic, and we showed him around and made him meet entrepreneurs in the ecosystem in India. And then we got talking, and then we realized, saying, hey, there is this big impending opportunity in India. The way the growth has been seen in the US, in Singapore, where both these locations where BIV is active, we said, let's do something which can be substantial, meaningful in India as well. And that actually started with, I think, BIV investing with a plant-based protein business in India first, which is Evo Foods, which everybody's heard of, which is trying to replicate egg. And we said, I think the timing is perfect and we should do something in India. And that's when we got together and said, hey, we should replicate the Accelerator model in India, the way they've been successful in Singapore and in the US, in New York. We should do something in India. And so here we are. I think it's an opportune time for us to make that announcement, that big announcement that we've been waiting for, to tell the world that, hey, we are going to go live next year with an Indian focused, India entrepreneur focused, Indian company focused accelerator, which will be supporting the entire ecosystem in India. I think India is in its infancy when it comes to the alternative protein sector. We have to find entrepreneurs which cater to the Indian subcontinent itself. We've got this large population that needs to be fed, and that cannot happen through traditional, conventional ways of food making. So Andrew and I have joined hands to build this ecosystem in India, and with everybody around, I think we have a long way to go, and we're excited about the journey.
Thank you, Chirag. Let me stay with you for the next question. Actually, you've mentioned how Ashika Group has been around for a while. You're very seasoned as a financial firm. You're essentially seasoned investors and people who help other seasoned investors raise money and invest money, right? What made you look at this area specifically, which is kind of novel and nascent currently?
So, let me answer this question by saying that all of us have been, who's been in this space, and us as financial services business as well. As I mentioned in my previous answer, that technology has become an integral part of our lives, right? And food essentially is sort of bypassed in our thinking of something to do with technology. Even though we're ordering food on Zomato or Swiggy, and the delivery boy who comes in uses the latest technology to deliver the right food to us, but the food in itself has not seen any changes, right? We are eating the same food that we've been eating forever. So that is where I think our interest to build this food technology, or interest to build this ground up, has come up. To again tell you about how our interest, that we've been in, how it shows our interest, is that we've been doing an event called Future Bets. We've done that in the last 2 years, and our objective through those events had been to identify technology or bring in people who come from various backgrounds of in technology or in entrepreneurs from around the world who can bring together and build something meaningful. So we've got that piece going, and with BIV in place, I think we've got this big synergy of the food space. And I'll tell you, in order to, you said finance. I think one of the biggest impediments of any innovation is sometimes finance. You may be the best research scientist, you may be the best academic, but I think sometimes capital becomes a bit of a constraint for you to move ahead in that direction. You have other incentives. So I think that is where we come into picture.
Varun, can I build on some of that?
Yeah, please do. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So a couple of quick things. One is that the projections for the growth in India in terms of population are incredible. You've got countries, for example, like Germany and other places, who are actually having a declining population. But India is fast becoming one of the major engines of kind of the global economy, both in terms of population, but also production, creativity, manufacturing, and so on. So it's literally probably the most important, side by side with China, the most important area in terms of growth for the world. So incredibly excited about the opportunity of India. Secondly, traditionally, as everybody knows who's on this call, it's traditionally a kind of a vegetarian slash kind of a ethical place in terms of consumption. So there's a perfect kind of nexus of why plant-based innovation and plant-based foods should be like absolutely at the perfect storm as far as India is concerned. So I'm excited about the market. I'm excited about the kind of how the consumers, I believe, in India will grab hold firmly of plant-based meat, seafood, and dairy as kind of the next thing for them to grab a hold of, given their ethical consumption patterns. Also, as a people, India is incredibly entrepreneurial. So I think it's a perfect place to locate an accelerator where we can bring the expertise we have around working with young companies, building young companies, bringing large companies and their expertise into the equation, other investors and so on. We can bring all of these pieces together around what is an incredibly entrepreneurial place. And so I'm waiting for India, after we launch our accelerator, to be jumping ahead of where even, for example, our New York accelerator and our Singaporean accelerator are. Maybe India will lead the way in that regard over the next few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've spent many hours over the last year thinking about this prospect, and it's been a long time coming, and I think it will absolutely be totally worth it. I would agree that the ecosystem is kind of poised for takeoff, and it needs this kind of catalytic vehicle to take it to the next level. I think we should get to the part that the audience wants to hear more about, which is this India Alternative Protein Fund and Accelerator. Could you tell the audience a little bit more about it? There's the motorbikes outside my window. What kinds of support will you be providing to entrepreneurs as part of this accelerator and fund?
Got it. Why don't I kind of start off that, Chirag, and maybe you get into the financial side on the back end. So basically, the model is quite similar. We've got a lot of experience doing this. This will actually be my 8th or 9th. By the time we launch our India accelerator, it'll be my 9th/10th program, which will mean 100 companies that we've invested in previously, or I've invested in previously in the food innovation space. A lot of experience around that. So we basically do a few things. We invest money, first and foremost, in the companies that we add to our portfolio. We also have a full-time dedicated team that works with them day to day, identifying the gaps and the challenges in the business model, and then bringing the right mentors, experts, partners across the food industry to solve those gaps and to make the company incredibly strong and have a strong foundation for growth. So it's about getting very young companies ready for Series A investment, i.e. typically 7-figure investment. Evo Food is a great example. You know, two people from India who have produced a plant-based egg product, and we've been working with them very, very closely, literally daily. And they've raised significant funding. They're a kind of a rising star in the India plant protein category. And they were the first Indian investment we made. So it's money, it's time, it's expertise, it's bringing the right partners, it's bringing access to what we call the value chain. So in other words, we have relationships with sourcing companies in terms of ingredients, with contract manufacturers and producers, with distributors, retailers, food service. So in other words, restaurants, hotels, hospitals and schools and those sorts of things. And we've got the best in class relationships across each of those aspects of the value chain, so that when we find fantastic companies and fantastic startups, we can help them to get to market and build a best in class company in the plant-based category. And by the way, worth mentioning, we've got that in North America. We have that in Asia Pacific. We'll have that in India. And next year also we'll have that in Europe. So what that means is when we find great products, whether it's in India or anywhere else, they'll be able to access the resources across the globe that we have at Big Idea Ventures and be able to get their product more efficiently into all of the major markets. Our goal is to change the world for the good, not just to change the US or Europe or India or Asia Pacific. When we find great companies, let's get them in as many places around the world and to consumers as possible.
Chirag, do you want to talk specifics about the program and things like that?
So I think Andrew's mentioned the overall what we're trying to do. So you understand that if you go to the supermarket right now in India, and if you really try hard, you'll probably get a few brands who will sell plant-based milk, and even fewer brands who are selling plant-based meat, right? So which essentially means that India is in its absolutely infancy when it comes to this entire area of alternative protein or plant-based sources of protein. And we're not talking about cell-based at all right now. I think we're still early days there, even we're still incubating there, I would say. So the entire idea of this accelerator is to create this ecosystem. And to create this ecosystem, you need everybody together. As they say in Africa, there's an African proverb which says, you need a village to raise a child. So in India, we are at that stage. The companies that we fund, the companies that we finance will be companies which will need all the support from everybody around the ecosystem to build them together. So that's what we will be providing in a structured format with, us as Ashika understanding India to some extent, BIV understanding the food alternative proteins sector very well. I think we join hands to support these companies in building the entire ecosystem. So that's one. So as far as specifics are concerned, Varun, I think we are going to be announcing that very soon. I do not want to get into the specifics, but it will be a mix of it will definitely be cash, it will be investment, and it'll be support and mentorship from the entire community.
Yeah, and I just wanted to also add in that the goal for the BIV Ashika India Fund will be to also fund companies that are promising for their growth stage as well, right? Beyond the accelerator.
That's correct. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. And it will be focusing on investments in alternative sources of meat, dairy, and even maybe on the supply side. We may not create all B2C brands. We also may create brands which are supporting other brands, which are maybe export oriented, which may provide, I don't know, the raw material for a for a burger joint or a burger in Europe, or a patty that's being developed for the market in, or a fish market in Japan. So it could be anything at this moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that's
Incredibly
worth,
exciting.
one thing that's,
Yeah.
so I was just going to say, one thing that's worth mentioning is that the effort and the initiative we're launching today in India is a dedicated India fund. So we have a global BIV fund, which is anything and everything around the world. We can invest in anything plant-based or cell-based meat, seafood, dairy, anywhere. Because we're so interested and enthusiastic and focused on the India market, we're actually creating a dedicated India fund, India initiative, India team, and so on. So we're raising specifically for the India market, and all of the funds will be focused on companies we accelerate through the Accelerator program, and also follow-on funding for the best of those companies. So it's not just a small amount of money and that's it. As they go through the program, as we identify our rock stars, our kind of future Elon Musks and so on, those companies will gain additional financial support from us to make sure that, you know, we take them as far as they can go in terms of success across the India and ultimately the global market.
Yeah, fantastic. And as I said, it's been over a year. It was July 26th last year when I met Andrew's team in Singapore. And we've been kind of noodling on this idea ever since, just to create a dedicated India-focused fund and accelerator. So this is really gratifying. And I will say again, this is exactly what the ecosystem needs. Chirag, to your point about investing upstream in the value chain as well, we've spent a lot of time talking about key opportunity areas within India and for Indian companies globally as well. Would you both expand on that for the audience, the kinds of things that we've been talking about as white space opportunities within India? Andrew, do you want to go first?
Actually, Chirag, why don't you kick off that?
Sure. So, I mean, it's been said multiple times, it's been done to the point that India will not be making a beyond meat, will not be talking about impossible. I mean, I don't want to say this again. Everybody knows that will have to be biryani or kebab or things like that. So we have to find our own beyond meat. We'll have to find our own impossible in India. And we will, as I mentioned, Varun, we are in the absolute early days of this ecosystem. And we will have to be creating this ecosystem ground up, because it will not just be about creating companies. It's also about creating audience who are interested in this. See, currently, as we speak, it will be maybe focused, if it's a P2C business, it'll probably be focused on the urban population who's probably been there, done that, who's seen the Beyond Meat burger when they went to their US holidays, or who've come back from a US education. They've eaten that, they understand it, they value it. There'll be those group of people. There'll be another group of people who will probably buy it because they care for the environment, or they care for more holy reasons, or for more reasons that are beyond just nutrition. I think so. It's one of the important points that Varun, I must mention, that I feel very strongly about, and it could be sort of correlated to the tech point, is that India as a country moved from desktop computers to a smartphone, right? We leapfrogged that. I don't think a lot of people probably use laptops in India as much as they probably use smartphones. There are definitely more smartphones with 3G connection in India than there probably are laptops, screens in the country. Similarly, I think India, which is a protein deficient country, where malnutrition is a big problem, we must try all our efforts to see if we can leapfrog our protein source in such a way that we move from animal-based to a direct plant-based meat protein business. I think that's where we should all be aiming and working towards.
So I don't know if that answers the question, though. Sorry, I was just going to say, ultimately consumers, although they may want to make ethical decisions, will ultimately make a decision on a day-to-day basis. And the way it works is those little daily micro decisions are what adds up and accumulates into a movement or a shift. So if we want people to move towards plant-based, we need to do a few things. One is create products which are culturally relevant and are the foods that people are passionate about in India, and are part of their daily existence. And two, make them that make them taste better, if possible, than the products we want to replace, and at a price point that makes them accessible to as many, if not all, the people. And that's tough. That's why you need, that's why you need to bring the village together. That's why you need these entrepreneurs, because that, ethical decisions will be a one purchase a week or one purchase a month. If you want to change, transform and have people leapfrog, as you say, from, animal protein to plant-based protein, the products need to be great tasting. They need to be at the right price. They need to be at the right texture. And it's not about adopting somebody else's culture from a food perspective. It's about continuing your own, because people are, people deserve to continue to eat the way they've always eaten. Now, I think we can actually hit those targets. I think the entrepreneurs that we work with and will work with in India can hit those targets of plant-based products that taste better than animal protein, have the right texture, have the right flavor, and actually get to the price point that makes them accessible to everyone. Tough to do, but I think we'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Really well said. And I think we're also really excited about the ecosystem piece of this, right? So as we've discussed throughout the conference, the kind of work that GFI India is doing to assemble this ecosystem across the value chain, I think there's a huge opportunity there. We've talked to some companies, B-Veg Foods on day one, that's focused on building a kind of one-stop shop manufacturing facility, or one-stop shop manufacturing base for the global plant-based community. These are the kinds of companies that need to exist. And then we also have this wonderful talent base that cuts across different sectors, as you both have mentioned. So of course it exists in software, it also exists in the biotech sphere. So there's a lot that we can leverage here. And I think everyone has mentioned throughout the conference our agricultural biodiversity as well that we can leverage.
I was going to say the great thing about this community is we've got you, Varun, and GFI, who have been absolutely pivotal to everything that we're talking about today. Wouldn't have happened without you guys. We've got Chirag and Ashika and their expertise and their network. We've also got people like Mark at Omnivore and others who have sort of broken the ground ahead of us, and who are also committed to the same missions that that we are. So, we've got a lot of people that we can rely upon and draw upon to make this successful. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for saying that, Andrew, as well. Okay, so what do you need at this stage? I think I'm looking to you both to answer this question. What do you need at this stage to get the fund and accelerator going? And what kinds of people are you looking forward to, I guess, accept investments from, but also partner with in the ecosystem?
So I see that as three things, and very top level, and then Chirag, by all means. One is great founders, great entrepreneurs. So deal flow, people who want to change the world, who have some ideas, who have a vision of how they're going to create the next India-based impossible equivalent, or the beyond, or whatever. So great entrepreneurs, or people who are just starting it. It doesn't even need to be somebody who's already kind of a big serious entrepreneur. We work with people who are almost at the idea stage. So, great entrepreneurs. Two is investors who are committed to their mission and the goal, and who see, from my point of view, and I've been across the food innovation space now for 7 or 8 years, right at the center of the innovation transformation. Plant-based and cell-based is a complete revolution of the food industry. Nothing like this has happened in the last 100 years, not since Mr. Coca-Cola or Mr. Pepsi came up with their bubbly brown liquid. Like, this is a completely new transformation, revolution of food, and every single category in the grocery store has the potential to be reimagined and recreated. And new, the General Mills, the Nestle's of the world were last generation. We've got the next generation of brands and foods companies coming, and it's such an opportunity for wealth creation, making a better world, and so on. So the second thing is is investors who want to be part of this growth opportunity and want to be putting their money to work for climate, for animal welfare, but also the ability to make a heck of a lot of wealth creation for them and their families. So the third area is the right partners. So, food companies, we've already got Tyson, Temasek, Beulah, and other companies on board in Big Idea Ventures as partners. We want great food companies in India who are going to be part of this revolution as well. So it's three things: entrepreneurs, investors, partners, food partners. Chirag?
No, that I think you've covered it all. I mean, I think we need all of these things going, and all the, if I can add, all the right blessings, and because timing is anybody's guess. We're in the right space for sure, and I think we have a lot to do in the next couple of months.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we're going to open it up now to questions from the audience, and maybe we'll extend the time by about 5 minutes because we're running out of time at 7:30. So let's extend the time. Could you bring up the Slido so I can see the questions from the audience? Thank you. Interesting question. So the first one is, do you think we tend to overcomplicate the act of starting a new business and get stuck? Andrew, I think you probably have a lot to say about this.
Sure. I'm not sure I have a lot of time to do it. Happy to take any of these questions offline. But every business, so I've started businesses myself from scratch. In my dorm room at school, I started my first, and others. The interesting thing is you start with a problem or an aha moment, and you get started if you're smart. Some people spend a lot of time doing the business plan and thinking about it, but what I've discovered is you write a business plan, then you get started. And when you get started and you start actually engaging with customers and consumers, your business plan gets thrown out the window because it was created in a vacuum. And it's only when you start getting real feedback from real customers, real consumers, that you realize exactly what they need and how they need it. So what I would say is, yes, get stuck in, get started, start, creating something and talking to people. I invested in a 16-year-old lady who started a nut butter company. She was annoyed that the nut butter products out there had lots of different fillers and things that they weren't very clean label. She went into her kitchen, she created something, she put them in jars, she went to a farmer's market, and she sold out within 15 minutes. She went home, did it all over again, made, I think, like 10 times the quantity, went back to the same farmer's market the next weekend, sold out within 30 minutes. Now she's got a multi-million-dollar business, and her whole family are in the business. She's now 18 years old, so she's growing up fast. But she started that from her own kitchen and just getting it into people's mouths. So the best thing to do is just to get it going.
Yeah, I would absolutely concur with that. There are a couple of questions now coming up about details about the accelerator in terms of when will be the first cohort, and then what kind of allocations are you looking at in terms of across the categories of plant-based, cultivated, fermentation-derived proteins. Chirag, do you want to talk a little bit about this? You mentioned that it'll be investing across these categories, but some of them are more nascent than others. So if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I think we are targeting next year. We are speaking to all our investors as we speak, and we're targeting next year, hopefully mid next year. But I think it will maybe in the next couple of months we'll have a more clear answer about the start date. And as far as the category is concerned, I think it's early days for us to say that, because the fermentation process or the plant-based or any of these processes, I think we'll have to see what the ecosystem is throwing at us. What are the kind of entrepreneurs that we are coming across? I do not think we'll be backing entrepreneurs who come up with solid ideas, with ideas which are really innovative, which make sense for the Indian market or global market for that matter. I don't think at this moment we can clearly say that we will divide them in these sectors, or even further down. I can't say that we'll be doing only seafood, or we'll have to do some sort of seafood, or dairy alternatives. I think we'll be open-ended as we speak, because the market is very new, and we'll build it as we go. Andrew, please add to that.
Yeah, I was just going to say it comes to how great the idea is, the company is, the vision of the founding team and the founding team. So, for example, if we end up getting 5 applications in plant-based meat, but they're not strong applications, and we get 5 applications from founding team members focused on plant-based dairy, we'll take the best companies. It doesn't matter where they're from. It doesn't matter what they're doing. It's about how great the team is, the vision, the big idea, and how confident we are that with our support, with the network, with the ecosystem we're building and so on, they can be a successful company in India and then ultimately globally. No allocations. It's not about getting a certain number in certain buckets. It's about changing the world and helping to create great companies.
Yeah, and I would also just add there that please don't make a decision on founding a company on the basis of any investors' allocations towards that. Please be obsessed with the problem and a specific way of solving that problem, and I think the rest can sort itself out. Andrew, you've worked for SOSV and then founded BIV. What would be the top 3 things that set apart companies you decide to invest in versus those which don't make the cut, and those which become successful and those that
Yes, absolutely. So I'm really passionate about the accelerator model. And that's something I learned at SOSV from a guy called Sean Broderick, who actually was one of the founding team members of Techstars back in the day. He's incredibly smart and very good at doing the accelerator. Interestingly, there's a lot of accelerators popping up, and it's very easy to hang a shingle outside of a building and call it an accelerator. That kind of annoys me sometimes, because the one thing startups don't have is a lot of time / money. And if you don't get the help and the support you need and get it from people who know what they're doing and how to do it, then you're risking the life of the company and the opportunity that company had. So, all accelerators are not created equal is probably the message there. Top 3 things that set apart companies we decide to invest in. We call ourselves Big Idea for a reason. We're about backing companies that will be global, that will be big, that will change the world fundamentally. We're not looking to just make a return on our investment. We're not looking to recreate impossible or beyond. So, if you're trying to recreate impossible beyond, join the queue. What we're looking to do is to back plant-based meat, seafood, and dairy companies who are going to be big, have the potential to make a significant difference. So the number 1 thing from my point of view is a big idea. Number 2 thing is the team, the vision of the team, the founder, how well they work together, how passionate they are, how committed they are, whether we think they can actually pull off the vision and the opportunity that they have. Third thing is probably from my point of view, coachability, i.e. willing to work with others, willing to kind of take on board the expertise that we have and that we have access to through, GFI and other partners and so on. So coachability, a willingness to work well with others and, get it done. An impetus. Oh, sorry, I know I said I'm supposed to have 3, but the 4th is grind. Starting a company is not always cool and is not always easy and is not always, it takes a willingness to not quit, a willingness to keep going even when the tough times happen, and tough times always happen. It's life. So, big idea, team, coachability, and a willingness to stay the path because you're absolutely committed to make your business successful.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I think we'll have to close there for the day. There will be more details that evolve about the India Alternative Protein Fund that BIV and Ashika Group are setting up together I would encourage all of you in the audience to reach out to either to us or to Andrew or to Chirag through the event platform or elsewhere to find out more. But it is early days, but I am incredibly optimistic that this is going to be pivotal for the Indian ecosystem. And this is a kind of a watershed moment for us, with multiple investment vehicles being set up in India. So thank you so much for your time, Andrew and Chirag. It's been great having you at the Smart Protein Summit.
Thank you. If people want to reach out, they can do so via bigideaventures.com. Even though we are launching next year, reach out now, and we'll either line you up for next year if you're great, or we'll find a way of working with you while we're putting the pieces together for the India Accelerator.
And thank you so much, Varun, as always, for setting this up and actually bringing Andrew and us together as well. You've been a big part of the entire support system and helping this happen. So thank you to you and to your entire team, Shardul, Sneha, everybody, and everybody at GFI India.
Wonderful. Take care, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow at the Smart Protein Summit Day 4. Good night.
Thank you, Varun. Thank you,
Thanks,
GFI.
Varun. See you guys.